There is a stillness you have long forgotten, a sacred hush beneath the pulse of striving, beneath the clamor of wanting, beneath the endless rehearsals of becoming. It waits for you like a quiet dawn waits for no applause. And in this stillness you are not reaching, you are remembering. Remembering what it feels like to live not from lack but from completion. Not from the noise of desire, but from the hush of fulfillment already made manifest. To live from the wish fulfilled is to step into the stream of creation not as a beggar but as a co-creator. Not to plead with life, but to align with the song it is already singing through you. The soul does not beg for what it knows it already holds. The soul closes its eyes, breathes in the miracle of now, and smiles because it knows the outer world is merely a mirror reflecting the frequency of your inner belief. When you live from the wish fulfilled, you do not chase love, you become it. You do not strive for peace, you breathe it. You do not search for abundance, you express it with every thought you allow and every emotion you welcome. You do not pray as one in poverty, you pray as one who trusts that your very longing is already a form of arrival. You do not ask as if you are separate from what you seek, you become the embodiment of the answered prayer. The wish is not something you wait for, the wish is something you be. This is not a game of pretending. It is the highest form of truth. Because all things created were first imagined, everything seen was once unseen. Your deepest desires are not delusions, they are divine seeds planted in you by a source that wants to experience itself through you. And the soil of those seeds is your consciousness. Tend it not with worry, but with faith. Not with fear, but with felt knowing. You don't manifest by needing. You manifest by knowing that you already are. The Tao whispers, act without striving. And yet, the world shouts back, hustle, climb, conquer. But the soul does not conquer. The soul remembers. It remembers that the kingdom is not in a far-off someday, but in this breath, in this sacred now. Jesus did not say, the kingdom will come. He said, the kingdom is within you. And to live from the wish fulfilled is to open that kingdom gate, not tomorrow, not when the conditions are perfect, but now, in the midst of your ordinary breath. It requires a quiet rebellion, a rebellion against the belief that you are incomplete, a rebellion against the narrative that you must strive to be worthy. To live from the wish fulfilled is to dissolve the illusion of time, to say I am instead of I will be. To declare with your being that what you long for is already moving through you, shaping your world, not because you forced it, but because you believed it was so. The ego waits, the ego calculates, the ego hesitates until it sees proof. But the soul creates the proof by believing without seeing. The soul is the knowing before the evidence. It is the music before the sound. The soul walks as if the path has already been laid, because it has. So walk, not toward your dream, but from it. Let your feet feel the ground, not of seeking, but of sacred fulfillment. Speak from the place where it is already done. Not because you are delusional, but because your reality is born from the invisible. Your thoughts are architects. Your feelings are sculptors. Your attention is the sacred chisel carving destiny from formless potential. This is not about faking. This is about remembering. Remembering that life responds not to your wish, but to your belief. And belief is not a sentence, it is a state. It is the atmosphere of your inner world. It is the lens through which you see. And when you shift that lens from someday to now, from maybe to already, the universe reshapes itself to reflect your conviction. Do not wait for the world to change before you feel joy. Feel joy and watch the world rearrange. Do not wait for the love to arrive before you open your heart. Open your heart and love will come running. Do not postpone your peace. Be the peace now and let the storm calm itself in your presence. This is how the masters lived, not as victims of circumstance, but as creators of vibration. They walked among men but listened to God. They saw the unseen and believed it real. They lived as if the divine was not outside of them, but within every cell, every breath, every quiet moment of trust. Rumi said, what you seek is seeking you. But the deeper truth is this: what you seek is already you. You are not apart from your vision, you are the vessel through which it is made visible. The dream is not separate, it is encoded into your soul. Your longing is the invitation. Your faith is the key. Your embodiment is the door flung wide open to let the miracle step through. So let go of the need to see it before you believe it. That is not how spirit moves. Spirit waits for you to align, to feel as if, to speak as though, to live from the end, to become the echo of your own answered prayer. You do not need more striving. You need more stillness. You need more sacred knowing. You need to walk into each day with the quiet power of someone who knows that the script is already written, and your only task is to trust the author. Imagine the flower questioning if it will bloom. It never does. It opens because it trusts the sun. You too are meant to open, not by force, but by faith. Not by demanding, but by allowing. Allow yourself to be the place where the wish is already fulfilled. Feel it in your breath, in your posture, in your presence. And then live as if you are the one who already holds the treasure, not because you found it, but because you realized you are it. The mind will argue, the world will doubt, but the soul knows. And when you let the soul lead, mountains move, doors open, synchronicity becomes your language. You stop trying to make life happen and instead allow life to flow through you with ease, with grace, with the quiet power of divine certainty. The wish fulfilled is not far. It is here. It is not something to reach. It is something to rest in. The moment you stop grasping, you start receiving. The moment you release the struggle, you become magnetic. The moment you live from the inside out, the outside rearranges itself in holy response. You were never meant to beg for your destiny. You were meant to embody it, to radiate it, to become so saturated with the vibration of your fulfilled life that life itself cannot help but yield to your frequency. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not lacking. You are simply being called to remember you are the fulfillment. You are the miracle in motion. You are the answered prayer walking upright in skin. Let that remembrance shape you. Let it humble you. Let it lift you beyond the old identity of need into the sacred power of presence. Let every breath be a proclamation. It is done. It is here. I am it. And so it is. When you begin to dwell, not in the yearning, but in the essence of fulfillment itself, a subtle shift unfolds, unseen by the eyes, yet undeniable to the heart. You are no longer bound by the need for evidence. You are moved instead by an inner rhythm, a divine cadence, whispering that the universe is already answered in the invisible before your lips ever parted in request. And in this sacred inner knowing, you cease to perform life, you begin to embody it. You see, the universe does not respond to pleading, it responds to alignment. It dances to the vibration of your deepest assumption, not your outer declarations. What you assume to be true within you becomes the blueprint life follows without. This is not about forcing outcomes, but about becoming the soil from which those outcomes naturally arise. The oak does not strain to grow, it simply remains rooted in its own potential. Likewise, when you become anchored in the frequency of already having, life grows through you without resistance. To live from the wish fulfilled is to shed the skin of doubt, not by argument, but by remembrance. Remembrance that you are not a bystander in your life's unfolding, but the original artist. Each thought you nurture is a brushstroke. Each belief is a color. And the canvas you paint upon is infinite, eternal, alive with possibility. Let your imagination no longer be the place where you hide from reality, but where you meet it halfway. Let it be the sacred altar where the formless takes shape. For imagination, when fused with unwavering belief, becomes the womb of all that is born into form. The mind may reason, but the soul envisions. And vision, clear, felt, and trusted, becomes the bridge between the now and the already manifested. Release the notion that you must understand every step. Understanding is not a prerequisite for becoming. The river does not need to know the path to the ocean. It flows anyway, guided by something deeper than thought. So too, your wish fulfilled does not require you to map the journey. It asks only that you trust the current, that you surrender the how and abide in the vibration of the already done. And what is that vibration, you ask? It is peace. Not the passive kind, but the potent stillness of a soul that no longer negotiates with fear. It is gratitude not for what may come, but for what already is in essence. It is a joy not based on evidence, but rooted in the knowing that the universe cannot contradict the truth of your being. What is affirmed with the soul becomes shaped by the world. There is a sacred discipline in this way of being, a quiet mastery. For the world may still swirl with contradiction. You may still face moments of doubt, flashes of the old self rising in resistance. But when your inner temple is built on truth, those moments become waves washing against a rock that does not move. You no longer collapse into circumstance. You stand as the circumstance begins to bend in response to your inner reality. This is not arrogance, it is reverence. Reverence for the divinity that flows through you, the same divinity that carved mountains and birthed stars. You are not separate from that source. You are an extension of its intention. And when you walk as if the divine is living through you, because it is, your every step becomes sacred ground, your every word a vibration that echoes across eternity. Living from the wish fulfilled is not a technique, it is a return to the native tongue of your soul, a return to the home you never truly left, only forgot. And as you dwell more and more in that remembered truth, the old illusions of waiting, wanting, and withering begin to dissolve like shadows in morning light. You realize you were never waiting for life to begin. It has always been waiting for you to show up as the one who already knows the outcome. So walk as if you are whole, because you are. Speak as one who is loved beyond measure, because you are. Create as one who cannot fail, because failure is merely the voice of an old identity you no longer inhabit. Allow the vibration of fulfillment to be your resting place, not your destination. And watch how the world, slowly at first, then all at once, reshapes itself around your unwavering truth. For you are not here to hope for miracles. You are here to be one. And when you live as the miracle you once chased, the very texture of your life changes. Time bends, not in hours or minutes, but in meaning. The days are no longer weighed by what is missing, but enriched by what is present. You no longer mark time by accomplishments or validations, but by the deep, sacred exhale that comes from simply knowing you are aligned. The wish is not coming, it has come. And it is living through you now, in your gaze, your gestures, your gentle assurance that all is well, even when appearances argue otherwise. Do not mistake this inner knowing for denial. It is not blindness, it is vision. To live from the wish fulfilled is to see with the eyes of the infinite, not the eyes of the temporary. You begin to look at what is and softly affirm, this too is part of it. Even the seeming delay, even the unanswered prayer, even the ache that sometimes returns like an old echo, it is all part of the tapestry of becoming. And when you trust the whole, you no longer fear the pieces. There is something unshakable about a soul who has tasted the future within the present. They do not argue for proof. They do not plead for permission. They simply become, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet, grounded certainty of one who knows that reality, in all its forms, is malleable. The clay of creation responds not to demand, but to devotion. Let your devotion be to truth, not as concept, but as living presence. Let it be your daily bread, the silent prayer behind your every step. I am already what I once thought I needed to become. I am not a seeker, I am a seer. And what I see within me, I call forth without. Feel how the heart responds to such clarity. There is no rush in this way of being, no panic, no lack, only a deep returning. A remembering that your destiny was never meant to be chased, it was meant to be embodied. And embodiment begins not in action, but in consciousness. It begins when you stop trying to become and start being. From that stillness, action flows not as effort, but as expression. The doing arises from the being. The phone call is made, the door is opened, the hand is extended, but all from a place of knowing, not needing. And that energy changes everything. It turns routine into revelation. It turns each encounter into an altar. It turns your life from a race into a ceremony. This is what it means to live from the wish fulfilled, not to shout your desires into the void, but to become so full of their reality that the void itself transforms into fullness. The mountain does not tremble because it is seen. It stands because it is whole. Be like the mountain unmoved by outer winds, shaped only by the quiet pulse of your own truth. And what a fear. It still comes, yes. But now it is a visitor, not a tenant. It arrives, but it does not unpack. Because your house, the house of your mind, your energy, your soul, is filled with something deeper than fear. It is filled with presence, with essence, with the invisible architecture of faith so profound that nothing false can linger for long. You begin to trust not just the light, but the shadow, not just the clarity, but the confusion. You understand that even the detours are holy, that even the silence is full of song. And that trust, it becomes your compass, your guide through the fog. You do not ask for the fog to lift, you become the light within it. And soon, others will notice, not because you tell them, but because you no longer need to. Your energy speaks, your peace teaches, your very being becomes a sermon in silence. They will ask you what changed, and you will smile, not with pride, but with reverence, because you know the truth. Nothing changed. You simply stopped waiting. You stopped postponing your joy until the world gave you a reason. You stopped demanding signs and became the sign. You stopped looking for miracles and began living as one. And in doing so, you did not abandon your humanity, you fulfilled it. Because to be truly human is to be divine in motion. And now, you move. You move not with urgency, but with grace. Not to escape, but to express. You are no longer striving to make things happen. You are allowing them to unfold through you. And this allowing is not passivity. It is the most courageous act of surrender. It is the yielding of the ego's grip and the opening of the soul's wings. It is the quiet inner agreement that says, I trust what is becoming through me more than I fear what has not yet arrived. Feel that. That sacred agreement, that unspoken vow between you and the infinite. It was never about begging the world to give you what you want. It was always about agreeing to be the vessel through which what wants to be birthed can arrive, not as a demand, but as a gift, a divine unfolding, sculpted not by the hands of fate, but by the vibration you choose to carry in this very breath. You become a living invitation, not to impress, but to embody. And embodiment is the final prayer. It is the prayer that does not ask, but affirms. It does not wish, it lives. When you become what you desire, you collapse the distance between yourself and the dream. The bridge dissolves because there is no longer a here and a there is only this presence, this knowing, this love. And in this space of divine being, you notice something beautiful begins to occur. The longing that once pulled at you begins to soften, not because you've lost the dream, but because you've merged with it. It no longer hurts to want it because you no longer feel separate from it. It lives in you now. It breathes with you. And in that merging, peace returns, not the fleeting kind that depends on outcomes, but the kind that simply is timeless, unshaken, whole. You become less concerned with when and more devoted to how you show up in each moment. You begin to see that time was never your enemy. Delay was never punishment. Every so-called pause was simply preparation for you to meet your own reflection without fear. The wish was not withheld. It was waiting for you to become still enough to receive it, not as a possession, but as an extension of who you already are. And so you walk the world with new eyes. You speak not to convince, but to offer presence. You listen not to respond, but to feel. The outcome no longer defines the moment presence does, and that presence makes everything holy. Even the most mundane becomes sacred under the gaze of a heart that has stopped striving and started surrendering. The rain is no longer an inconvenience, it is a blessing. The silence is no longer empty, it is filled with wisdom. Every delay, every detour, every uncertainty now a sacred invitation to lean deeper into trust. You see, when you live from the wish fulfilled, your life becomes a meditation, not in stillness alone, but in movement, in conversation, in breath. In every sacred yes, you offer to what is rather than what should be. You stop postponing joy for the arrival of the perfect moment, and instead, you become the moment. You stop waiting for signs and realize you are the sign, the evidence, the echo of the divine saying, see, it is already done. And here's the mystery. The more you dwell in that knowing, the more life conspires in your favor. Not because you demanded it, but because you aligned with it. The universe doesn't reward need. It responds to coherence, to wholeness, to the frequency of I am, not I hope to be. You radiate completion, and completion flows back to you in ways you never could have scripted. This is the quiet power of spiritual alignment. Not loud, not forceful, but absolute. You become the calm in the storm, the still point in the turning world. And people begin to feel it, not in your words, but in your being. Your life becomes less about getting and more about giving, not because you have to, but because you are full. And from fullness, service is not sacrifice, it is overflow. The wish fulfilled is not a possession, it is a state of consciousness, a resting place within, a knowing that precedes form and therefore is never shaken by its absence or presence. It is the unconditional yes you offer to life, not because it is perfect, but because you finally see that you are. And in that seeing, the search ends. Not with a bang, not with a finish line, but with a smile, with a breath, with a silent, unshakable knowing. I am already what I was waiting for. There is a moment imperceptible to the eye, but felt with the fullness of the heart, when the inner landscape becomes more real than the outer form. When the noise of becoming dissolves, and the soul no longer strains to achieve, but simply abides. You find yourself standing not on a path toward fulfillment, but in the radiant center of it. And there, without fanfare, without announcement, life begins to speak to you differently. Not as a taskmaster, not as an obstacle course, but as a mirror revealing not what you lack, but who you truly are. You begin to understand that manifestation is not about convincing life to give you what you want. It's about allowing yourself to receive what has always belonged to you. The law of the universe is not transaction, but reflection. Life reflects the vibration you hold, not the words you say. It listens to your silence more than your speech. It responds to your inner climate more faithfully than to your outer actions. So when you change your atmosphere from striving to serenity, from doubt to knowing, you shift the very soil from which your life is grown. This is why the wish fulfilled is not found, it is inhabited. It is not conjured through force, it is made manifest through frequency. And the frequency of fulfillment is not fantasy, it is the most grounded state of being there is. Because it is rooted in the eternal, not the temporary. It draws not from circumstance, but from essence. It speaks not of becoming more, but of returning to the truth that you were never less. And in this return, you reclaim something the world could never give you, your authority. Not the authority to control life, but to collaborate with it. Not the power to dominate, but the grace to align. You stop trying to manipulate outcomes and instead learn to harmonize with the silent intelligence that moves the tides and spins the stars. You become not a builder of destiny, but a partner with it. From this space, decisions arise differently. You no longer ask, will this get me there? Instead, you ask, is this a reflection of who I already am? You stop reacting to the world and begin responding from the soul. Each step becomes deliberate, not because you fear the unknown, but because you've made peace with it. You walk not in search, but in sacred participation. And the energy of your life begins to shift, subtly at first, like the early tremors of spring beneath frozen ground, then more clearly, more powerfully, until you begin to feel it in your bones. Something has changed. Not out there, in here. In the way you rise, in the way you speak, in the way you carry yourself, not as one waiting for approval, but as one who knows they are already whole. You understand now that the outer world is not the place where fulfillment begins, it is the place where it is revealed. And so you stop waiting for signs, you stop tracking timelines, you stop measuring your worth by the feedback of circumstance. Because you know if it is in you, it is already on its way to you. If you feel it deeply, it is not imagination, it is invitation. It is the soul's way of saying, yes, this is real. Yes, this is yours. Now live as if it already is. And you do, not to prove a point, not to win the race, but because you can no longer deny what you've remembered, that your being is not a preparation for something greater. Your being is the something greater, and everything else is simply catching up to that truth. And now you arrive not to a place, but to a presence. Not to a conclusion, but to a beginning so quiet it almost slips past unnoticed. You arrive to the breath that no longer needs to be chased, to the stillness that no longer needs to be earned. You arrive to yourself, not the self you were taught to perfect, but the one you've always been underneath the layers of trying, proving, explaining. The self that has waited patiently behind every doubt, every ache, every whispered question of am I enough, to which the answer has always been, you are more than enough. You are it. And as this truth ripens within you, the seeking softens. Not because you've given up, but because you've finally come home. You no longer live from hope, you live from trust. Not the fragile trust that depends on outcomes, but the unshakable trust that arises when you know you and the divine are not separate. That what you have longed for was never lost, it was simply unexpressed. And now, with open hands and a soft gaze, you allow it to move through you, not as wishful thinking, but as sacred embodiment. You begin to bless everything, not in ritual, but in rhythm. The way your eyes meet the light each morning becomes a blessing. The way you stand in your own presence without apology becomes holy. You are no longer here to get life right. You are here to live it true. You are no longer here to chase love. You are here to be it in every step, in every breath, in every choice, born from alignment rather than fear. And this alignment, it speaks a language only the soul can hear. It says, walk slowly but walk sure, speak gently but speak truth. Rest often, not out of exhaustion, but because stillness is sacred. Let yourself be moved by beauty without asking why. Let yourself cry without needing to explain. Let yourself love without needing to possess. This is the rhythm of one who remembers. This is the path of the wish fulfilled, not paved with striving, but lit with surrender. Even now, as these words meet you, feel the quiet truth behind them. There is nothing left to seek, only something to unveil. The joy you imagined is already your nature. The peace you craved is your resting state. The love you looked for is the very substance of your being. You have never been far. You have only been disguised. And now the disguise falls away. Not with struggle, but with grace. You no longer wear the mask of not enough. You no longer shrink into the illusion of unworthiness. You stand just as you are, a soul remembering its shape, a spirit returning to its light, a being no longer delayed by the myth of someday. There is no someday. There is only this moment alive, luminous, whole. So breathe it in, not as one who needs more, but as one who finally realizes this is the more, this breath, this presence, this sacred, ordinary now. And from this now, life will continue to unfold, not because you force it, but because you've aligned with the river of what already is. You are not at the mercy of life's waves. You are the ocean from which they rise. So go, not to change yourself, but to express yourself. Go, not to find your worth, but to honor it. Go, not to chase your dream, but to remember. The dream is already alive within you. Live now from that remembrance, live from the wish fulfilled, and be free. What are you assuming today? Are you assuming that life is against you? That you must earn your worth one exhausting day at a time? Are you assuming that your joy is on hold, waiting on something or someone to arrive before you may finally exhale? Pause for a moment and breathe deeper. For every assumption you carry is like a veil placed between you and the infinite. The mind assumes, but the soul knows. The mind clings to what it has gathered from fear, but the soul rests in what it has always remembered. Every assumption is a story, a lens, a whisper from the ego trying to convince you that life must go a certain way in order to be right, that people must behave a certain way in order for you to be safe. But what if those assumptions are not the truth? What if they are the very barrier keeping you from it? Assumption is the armor of the wounded self. It seeks to predict in order to protect. It grasps at certainty because it has forgotten the deeper intelligence that has carried you through every chapter you thought you wouldn't survive. When you assume, you stop listening. When you assume, you stop seeing. And most heartbreaks are not caused by reality, but by the assumptions we placed upon it. Assumptions shrink the vastness of the moment into a narrative the mind can control. They turn miracles into transactions, love into negotiations, and life into a problem to be solved. But life was never meant to be reduced. It was meant to be lived, felt, embraced in its holy unpredictability. The Tao does not assume, it flows. Jesus did not assume the worth of those he touched. He saw the divine in every face. Rumi did not assume separation. He danced in union. The masters knew assumption is resistance in disguise. It is the ego's way of keeping control while claiming to seek truth. So ask yourself, what are you assuming today? Are you assuming you are not enough? That your healing must take years? That your joy must wait until the stars align? Are you assuming someone else must change for you to be free? These assumptions are quiet chains, and they are optional. You see, when you meet life without assumption, you meet it with presence. And presence is the gateway to freedom. Without assumption, a cloudy sky becomes a cathedral. A stranger's glance becomes a sacred reflection. A challenge becomes a curriculum for awakening. You stop boxing reality into what it should be and begin to receive it for what it is, a messenger of your own becoming. Every moment you assume someone's motives, you forfeit the mystery of who they really are. Every time you assume your future will be a replica of your past, you close the door on a miracle already knocking. Assumption is a subtle form of control, and control is the language of fear. But surrender? Surrender is the mother tongue of the soul. It trusts the unseen. It welcomes the unknown. It walks into the now without needing it to be anything other than what it is. To live without assumption is to live as a child of the divine. It is to let the day unfold like a flower, not forcing the petals, but receiving the bloom. It is to listen to life like a lover listening to poetry, hearing not just the words, but the silence between them. The ego will resist this path. It will beg for maps, for guarantees, for something to hold. But your spirit is not here to hold. Your spirit is here to soar. You were not born to gather certainties like trophies. You were born to walk the holy edge of now with open hands. So let go. Let go of the assumption that you are behind. Let go of the assumption that you are broken. Let go of the assumption that the next moment will be just like the last. Each time you drop an assumption, you gain a new freedom. Each time you release a story, you remember the vastness of who you are. You are not the product of your predictions. You are the awareness behind them. You are not the sum of your fears. You are the light that sees through them. You are not a character bound by a script. You are the presence in which the story unfolds. And in that presence, there are no walls, no judgments, no chains, only breath, only stillness, only truth. You are already free. You simply assumed you weren't. You are already whole. You simply assumed you needed fixing. You are already loved. You simply assumed you had to earn it. Strip it all back, gently, with grace. Let every assumption be a leaf falling from the tree of your old identity. Beneath it, a naked, luminous truth emerges. Not one you must reach for, but one that has always been waiting beneath the noise. Meet this moment not with your mind, but with your soul. Not with what you expect to find, but with what is actually here. The miracle is not in what is coming. The miracle is in your willingness to drop the veil and finally see. What are you assuming today? That question is not a condemnation, it is a doorway. It is a hand on your shoulder inviting you inward, not to fix, not to change, but to see clearly, to breathe fully, to live as if life itself were your beloved, because it is. And the moment you stop assuming what life should be, you fall in love with what it already is. And in that love, you remember who you were before the stories. You remember the stillness that holds every storm. You remember that your greatest freedom is not found in knowing what's next, but in meeting what is, without assumption, without resistance, with the eyes of the soul wide open. So pause now. Inhale the mystery. Exhale the story. And in that sacred space between what you thought would be and what actually is, meet yourself anew. Not the self others assign to you. Not the self your fears described, but the unnameable self, the eternal, the free, the divine. This is your invitation. This is your return. This is your truth. You do not have to know what will happen next in order to trust this moment. The ocean does not need to map the tides before it rises. The stars do not ask for permission to shine. Life does not consult your expectations before revealing its wisdom. And you, dear soul, are not here to anticipate every outcome. You are here to be in union with what is, to touch the now with open hands, not clenched fists. Every assumption you make is a brick in the wall that separates you from peace. And peace was never meant to be built. It was meant to be felt, like sunlight on the skin, like silence inside the breath. To assume is to step out of the present and into a maze of imagined futures. It is to live in a hologram of what might be, rather than in the holiness of what is. Assumption says, I already know, but the awakened soul whispers, I am ready to discover. When you stop assuming, even the most ordinary moment begins to shimmer with grace. You stop missing your life and begin meeting it. You stop bracing for disappointment and start leaning into wonder. Because every assumption you release is a door that swings open to a wider sky. What are you assuming about your worth? That it depends on what you do? That it changes with the opinions of others? That it increases only when you achieve? Hear this now, not as a concept, but as the very breath of truth. Your worth is not negotiable. It was not assigned by the world, and it cannot be taken by it. You are not a project, you are a presence. You are not a task to be completed, you are a light to be revealed. No assumption can make you more valuable, no failure can make you less. You are whole, because wholeness is your essence, not your achievement. And what of others? How often do we assume their silence is rejection, their words an attack, their actions a verdict against our being? But people are not their appearances. They are not their wounds. They are not the masks they wear when fear tightens its grip. To assume you know their hearts is to miss the sacred mystery within them. Every person you meet is a soul in motion. Every harsh word could be a cry for gentleness. Every cold glance could be the echo of a past they are still trying to forgive. When you stop assuming, you stop judging. When you stop judging, you start loving. And in that space, healing flows where division once reigned. Release the assumption that pain means you are doing something wrong. What if pain is not a punishment but a passage? What if your ache is not the enemy but the invitation? The soul does not seek comfort, it seeks awakening. And sometimes it wraps itself in sorrow, so you will sit still long enough to listen. Do not assume the hard moments are detours. They may be the most direct path home. They may be grace in disguise, not because they feel good, but because they strip away what you thought you needed to be whole. Assume nothing. Assume no outcome, no identity, no should. Stand like a mountain and breathe like the sea. Meet each moment like the first note of a sacred song, new, mysterious, alive. Let each breath be a reminder. You do not need to know. You need only to trust. Trust the intelligence that spins planets. Trust the rhythm that brings dawn after every dusk. Trust the whisper that says, you are held even now. Do not assume you are lost because the path looks unfamiliar. The soul often leads you into the unknown, not to confuse you, but to free you. What you call confusion may be clarity breaking through your old illusions. What you call failure may be the death of a lesser dream, making space for truth. Do not assume the detour is a mistake. It may be the miracle in disguise. The way may twist, but the destination is not a place. It is a state of being. And you arrive not by figuring it out, but by feeling your way home. The ego craves certainty. The soul craves connection. One binds you to stories, the other breaks you open to the sacred. Choose connection. Choose the unknown. Choose to meet the moment without your assumptions, without your defenses, without your plans. Just meet it fully, as you are, as it is. That is the miracle. That is the freedom you have been chasing under 1,000 different names. You are not here to defend your assumptions. You are here to dissolve them, and in their place, to live in wonder, in openness, in reverence. Because the less you assume, the more you see. And the more you see, the more you love. And the more you love, the more you return to the truth of who you are, a being not bound by belief, but liberated by presence. So I ask you again, softly, reverently, not to challenge you, but to awaken you. What are you assuming today? And are you willing just for this moment to let it go? To let life speak to you in its native tongue, not logic, not prediction, but presence. Let it speak to you through the wind on your face, the silence between your thoughts, the stillness behind your eyes. Let it remind you that you are not your assumptions, you are not your past. You are not even your name. You are the space between all that, the awareness holding it, the love flowing through it, the light untouched by it, and from that light, everything can begin again, fresh, free, fully alive. And when everything begins again, when you allow yourself to walk into the day without dragging the weight of yesterday's conclusions behind you, you find that you are no longer a prisoner of your story. You are a witness to the miracle. The moment you cease assuming how things should be, how people should act, how life should unfold, you awaken to what already is, and what already is, dear soul, is far more sacred than anything the mind could script. Do not assume that awakening will be loud. It may come like morning light inching across your floor in silence. It may come as a pause between thoughts, as a tear you can't quite explain, as a breath that suddenly feels like the first one you've ever truly taken. This is the grace of letting go. Not letting go of life, but of how you think life should appear. You stop needing to be right, and you begin needing only to be real. You stop performing, and you begin to presence. You stop bracing for the storm, and you begin to recognize that the storm too is sacred. Every assumption is a layer of fog over the luminous clarity that already resides within you. And the great returning, the holy homecoming, is not a journey through miles, but through veils. One by one, these veils fall. The assumptions of who you must be, the assumptions of how healing must look, the assumptions of how long it will take, The assumptions of what others must give you in order for you to feel complete, one by one, they dissolve in the light of awareness. And as they dissolve, the horizon of your soul stretches wider than you ever imagined possible. You are not here to predict, you're here to participate. You are not here to control the wind, you're here to dance with it. And there is no greater dance than the one that happens when you stop assuming you're separate from the rhythm. When you finally see that you are not the one standing at the edge of the ocean hoping to be invited in, you are the ocean, you are the tide, you are the moon that calls the waves. Let today be the day you become curious again. Curiosity is the child of wonder, and wonder is the language of God. Let yourself not know. Let yourself be undone. Let yourself dissolve into the awe of now. The moment you release the assumption that you must have it all figured out, you make room for something greater than understanding something ancient, quiet, and vast. You make room for grace, and grace does not arrive as a thunderclap, it arrives as presence. It is the soft whisper that says, you don't have to carry this anymore. It is the invisible hand that guides you, not because you earned it, but because you are it. Grace is not a reward, it is a remembrance, a return to your natural state, a return to the peace that was never gone, only covered. So if you must assume something today, let it be this. Assume that you are already enough. Assume that you are already guided. Assume that everything unfolding in your life is not a mistake, but a masterpiece in progress. Assume that the people you meet are sacred mirrors, reflecting back pieces of your own soul. Assume that your breath is holy, your tears are cleansing, and your longing is not lack, it is your soul trying to show you the way home. Assume that love is the default, not the exception. Assume that you are not waiting on the universe is waiting on you to stop pretending you are separate from it. Assume that you do not need to do more, be more, prove more in order to deserve rest, joy, or peace. Assume the best not just of life, but of yourself. And then watch what happens. Watch how life begins to echo back the beauty you assumed was not yet yours to claim. Watch how the people you once feared begin to soften in your presence. Watch how what once seemed chaotic begins to reveal a sacred geometry. Not because life has changed, but because you have. Because you finally let go of the lens that distorted your view. When you release the assumptions, you release the resistance, and what flows in to take its place is not emptiness, it is truth. It is clarity. It is the soft, unshakable knowing that you have never been outside of love, not for a single breath, not for a single moment. Let this knowing settle into your bones. Let it hold you. Let it become your compass. For when you walk through the world with this knowing, there is no fear that can bind you, no story that can define you, no outcome that can shake you. You are not the assumptions. You are the awareness beneath them. You are not the story, you are the stillness. You are not the seeker, you are what has been sought all along. And now that you've remembered, may you never again assume yourself to be small. May you walk through the world not with answers, but with presence, not with judgment, but with awe, not with resistance, but with grace. Because the only thing ever standing between you and the sacred was what you assumed to be true. But now you see, now you know. And in that knowing, you are free. Freedom is not a place you arrive at. It is the gentle loosening of everything you thought you had to be. It is the silence after the noise of identity fades. It is the calm that remains when you stop trying to define your value by how others receive you. True freedom is not in escaping your life. It is in inhabiting it so completely, so reverently, that even the ordinary becomes holy. When you no longer assume that you must be more, that you must do more, that you must prove something, you begin to hear the sacred hum that was always beneath the striving, the hum of being, the hum of God whispering through your breath, through your heartbeat, through the still gaze you offer to the world when you finally feel no need to guard yourself. And what rises in that stillness is not passivity, it is power. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that liberates. Not the kind that demands, but the kind that magnetizes. This is the power of one who has nothing to prove, because they are rooted in the unshakable knowing that they are already whole. The world cannot manipulate such a soul, for their validation is not outsourced, it is born from within. They no longer negotiate their worth on the altar of performance. They no longer confuse attention for love. They no longer seek to fit a mold, for they have remembered. They are not clay, they are the hands shaping it. Let yourself be shaped, not by the assumptions of your past, but by the wisdom of your presence, Let go of who you thought you were supposed to be. That image is not your truth, it is your costume. And beneath the costume is a presence so vast, so luminous, so ancient, it does not need adornment to be beautiful. It simply is. And when you stand in that isness, when you no longer hide behind personality, profession, or pain, you begin to live as you were always meant to live, spontaneously, authentically, divinely. You become the space through which life reveals its most honest expression. You stop scripting your interactions and begin breathing them. You stop anticipating the next line in the play and begin feeling the texture of the moment itself. And in that presence, you do not need to be impressive, you only need to be real. It is the realness that heals. It is the presence that transforms. People are not longing for your perfection, they are longing for your truth. And your truth does not require explanation, it requires embodiment. So breathe now into the space that no longer pretends. Let your shoulders drop. Let your expectations soften. Let your mind ungrip from the need to know. You are not a machine built for output. You are a soul here to express the infinite through the intimate. Every laugh, every tear, every touch of your hand on your own heart is sacred when it is offered in truth. You do not need an audience. You do not need applause. You only need to return to the purity of your own gaze, unfiltered, unjudging, unwavering. In that gaze, all assumptions dissolve. You no longer assume that life is a problem to be solved. You begin to see that life is a presence to be felt. You no longer assume that others are threats or saviors. You begin to recognize them as fellow travelers, each carrying their own sacred wound, each worthy of your compassion. You no longer assume that your past must be repeated. You begin to feel the pulse of now, beckoning you to step off the carousel of unconscious living and into the vastness of awakened being. This is the moment that changes everything, not because the outer world shifts, but because the inner one does. You start to see the miracle not in grand gestures, but in small awakenings. The way a breeze brushes your cheek, the way a word lands in your chest like a memory of something eternal, the way your body knows when it is being honored and your spirit sighs in relief when you stop running. Let that sigh be your prayer. Let that exhale be your anthem. You are no longer required to chase. You are invited to rest. Not in stagnation, but in sacred allowing. Rest in the rhythm of your own becoming. Rest in the knowing that you are not late, you are not broken. You are not incomplete, you are simply unfolding. And this unfolding does not need to be rushed, it does not need to be managed, it only needs to be honored. So honor yourself not as an idea, not as a project, but as a living, breathing portal of presence. Every step you take from this space becomes a blessing. Every word you speak becomes a mirror of the divine. Every moment you choose truth over assumption becomes an act of liberation for yourself and for every soul you touch. Because when one soul remembers its freedom, it leaves a trail for others to follow. A trail not made of declarations, but of presence. Not paved in certainty, but in love. And love, pure, unconditioned love, needs no explanation. It does not ask why. It does not hold a ledger. It does not assume. It simply shines. It simply gives. It simply is. And so are you. There is a silence within you that has never known fear. It does not flinch at uncertainty, does not retreat from the unknown. It waits not in hesitation, but in holiness. It waits for you to return, not with answers, but with presence. And each time you turn inward, each time you dare to be still in a world that worships noise, you come closer to that inner sanctuary where assumptions cannot survive. There, in the stillness beneath your thoughts, is where truth lives. Not as a sentence to be spoken, but as a state of being so complete, it cannot be improved upon, only remembered. To live from that space is not to disengage from life, but to engage with it more fully. You do not float above your human experience, you dive into it with sacred clarity. You feel more, not less. You listen longer, not louder. You become the one who no longer reacts, but responds. And that response is no longer dictated by fear or assumption. It rises from a wellspring of wisdom that cannot be shaken. This is the mark of the awakened soul. Not that it avoids the fire, but that it learns to breathe through the flame without being consumed by it. Let each challenge be your teacher, not your tormentor. Let each disruption be a rearrangement in service of your deeper alignment. The ego will try to name everything good, bad, success, failure, but the soul does not label. the soul learns. It watches, it integrates, it allows. And the more you live as soul, the less you cling to conclusions. You begin to let things be incomplete. You begin to see the sacred in the unresolved, because there is beauty in what is still becoming, in what is not yet defined. Assumptions seek to finalize, to finish, to close the book too soon. But the soul lives in openness. It whispers, let it unfold. Let it surprise you. This is not the kind of openness that comes from weakness. It is the strength of surrender, the courage to live undefended, the willingness to meet each person, each moment, each mirror, without the need to control the reflection. Imagine the freedom of no longer needing to explain yourself. Imagine the lightness of no longer trying to manage perceptions. When you assume nothing, you owe nothing to appearances. You are free to be honest, to be silent, to be full of wonder without performing certainty. And in this freedom, something begins to awaken that no amount of striving can reach. A kind of grace moves through you, not something you manufacture, but something you make room for. It animates your presence. It softens your gaze. It aligns your actions with an inner truth so vast, so ancient, it cannot be taught, only revealed through living. You become less concerned with being understood and more devoted to being aligned. You stop measuring life and outcomes and begin experiencing it in depth. Assumptions collapse under the weight of truth, and the truth is never heavy. It is only our resistance to it that feels burdensome. Let go of that resistance now, not with effort, but with trust. Trust that life is not here to punish you, but to polish you. Trust that each unanswered question is sacred in its own right. Trust that what is being withheld is not a denial, but a redirection towards something even more true. Life is not trying to confuse you, it is trying to deepen you. And in that depth, you do not find a new identity. You find the absence of identity. You find the still witness, the formless awareness that sees through all masks and remains untouched by all storms. This is the you that does not flinch, does not strive, does not assume. It simply is. And from that isness, everything else becomes clearer, not because you've figured it all out, but because you've stopped needing to. The petals do not assume they must bloom by a certain date. They trust the sun. They trust the soil. They trust the quiet intelligence moving through their roots. So too can you. You do not need a map. You are not late. You are not being punished for past mistakes. You are simply in the soil phase. And the soil is not the end, it is the beginning of everything beautiful. Let yourself be quiet now. Let yourself be free. Let yourself exist beyond the ideas, beyond the performance, beyond the persona. The world does not need another perfect version of who you think you should be. It needs the honest, raw, unguarded truth of who you already are. That truth is not a product of assumption, it is born of presence. And presence is the doorway through which the sacred enters the world. And you, dear soul, are that doorway. Always have been, always will be. And so now, as you stand at the threshold of your own awareness, as the old assumptions fall like tired leaves in the wind, something softer begins to rise. Not an answer, not a command, just a deep, quiet clarity. A knowing that has no voice, yet speaks in every cell of your being. It is the knowing that you are not a question waiting to be solved, but a presence longing to be felt. You were never missing, you were only misidentified. And now, in the stillness where assumptions once stood, you find the open sky of your own soul stretching out in every direction. Let yourself expand into that sky. No boundaries, no definitions, no past chasing you, no future seducing you. Just this vast, eternal now, breathing you, holding you, loving you. The peace you've prayed for does not live in the resolution of all things. It lives in the surrender to what already is. The love you have begged for is not hidden in someone else's gaze. It is pouring through your very breath, aching to be recognized. The freedom you've sought like a distant flame is not ahead of you. It is in the moment you stop trying to become and simply allow yourself to be. There is nothing left to fix, nothing left to chase, nothing more to understand. The soul is not waiting for the mind to catch up. It is waiting for the mind to fall silent. And when it does, what floods in is not emptiness, it is everything. The smile that asks for nothing. The tear that honors everything. The breath that no longer reaches forward or clings backward, but simply exists as prayer in motion. You are not here to win at life. You are here to awaken to it, to walk barefoot through the ordinary and feel the miracle in every grain of it. To look into a stranger's eyes and see the whole cosmos reflected back. To hold your own heart gently as you would a sacred relic, knowing that every bruise is an opening, every scar a doorway through which the light has already passed. And when the world tells you again to hurry, to harden, to become someone else, you will remember this space, this vastness inside you that needs no defense. You will remember that you are not your name, your history, your roles, or your thoughts. You are the stillness beneath the movement, the presence behind the eyes, the love that has no opposite. You will move differently now. You will speak, not to fill silence, but to honor it. You will listen, not to respond, but to feel. You will walk, not to arrive, but to align. And your life, once tangled in effort, will begin to bloom in effortless grace, not because you made it so, but because you allowed it. This is the sacred return, not to a doctrine, not to a destination, but to the nameless truth within. And in that return, you do not find a new version of yourself. You find the one that has always been here, waiting patiently beneath the noise. You do not become the light, you remember you are the light. And that remembrance is enough to change everything. So let it be simple now. Let it be quiet. Let it be whole. No need to convince, explain, or strive. Just be. Be as you are, where you are, with nothing added, nothing subtracted. And in that pure being, the world will shift, not because you pushed it, but because your stillness moved the center of it. The sun does not apologize for shining. The river does not justify its flow. The tree does not question the seasons. And you, radiant soul, do not need to explain your existence. You are here. You are enough. You are whole. You are home. And the miracle is not coming. It is not ahead of you. It is not earned. It is already here. It is this breath, this awareness, this letting go, this surrender, this sacred remembering. There is nothing more to assume. Only everything left to feel, everything left to trust, everything left to become by unbecoming. You are not becoming something new. You are simply no longer denying what has always been true. And in that truth, you are free.